Thank you for joining me for another episode of A Learned Life. This time I will be highlighting a subject that is very near and dear to my heart, free will. One afternoon I was working in my garage and listening to an episode of the Making Sense podcast with Sam Harris, and he spoke for around an hour on the subject. At the conclusion of the episode, I sat for the rest of the day just pondering free will. This unlocked a long dormant part of my brain and ignited the fire that led to this channel. I have since battled the thought of free will in the back of my brain nearly every day. I hope to unlock the same thought process in yours. The idea of free will is a philosophical and scientific question that has been debated for centuries. If we are determined to do things by other factors, then are we really free? There is no single answer to the question of free will and determinism, but it does seem that there is enough evidence from neuroscience, psychology, and quantum physics to support the idea that our decisions are not made freely. The scientific argument for determinism says that the future is determined by the past, and that there is no free will. It's a scientific argument with many different lines of evidence. The first line of evidence comes from the laws of physics. Albert Einstein showed in his theory of relativity that time slows down when you are moving at a high speed relative to someone else, and it speeds up when you are moving at a slow speed relative to someone else. This means that we can't really tell if time is going forward or backward, because it could be going both ways, depending on your perspective. This means that time isn't linear, and therefore free will doesn't exist because there is no way to know what will happen next based on what just happened in time. Another line of evidence comes from neuroscience, where studies show how our brains work based on what we don't know. It is thought that we use the not knowing state as a basis for making sense of our surroundings by using past experiences and general knowledge. This allows us to make predictions about what might happen in the future based on existing information. The ability to think critically relies on not knowing information, and without that, we have no foundation for making sound judgments or decisions. In his book entitled Free Will, Sam Harris argues that free will is an illusion. He has a scientific argument for determinism, which is the idea that all actions are predetermined. Sam Harris believes that we can't have free will because it would mean that there was no such thing as cause and effect. If every event was caused by a previous event, then we couldn't possibly be responsible for our actions because they were predetermined before we made them. In other words, if everything is predetermined, then there's no way to determine what causes something to happen or not to happen. Pierre-Simon Laplace was a French mathematician and astronomer who lived in the 18th century. He is best known for his formulation of the nebular hypothesis. Laplace believed that the universe was composed of matter, energy, and gravitation. He also formulated what is now called the principle of sufficient reason, which states that nothing happens without a reason. Essentially, this means that there is always an explanation for phenomena in our world. The philosophers of the old materialistic school are sometimes held in low regard because they believe that there is only one mode of being, and that is material. There must be some reason why this is so, since everything we know implies the existence of a spiritual realm. However, their ideas have influenced the world through their work on natural science and empirical research. In the 1960s, the meteorologist and mathematician Edward Lorenz discovered that a small change in one of the initial conditions of a system, such as the flapping of a butterfly's wings in Brazil, could result in a large difference in the later state, such as a tornado in Texas. This became known as Lorenz's butterfly effect, and it is a vital part of chaos theory. Lorenz's discovery has been used to support both free will and determinism. Some people see it as evidence that humans can change their fate by making choices. Perhaps they could send the butterfly off in a direction, causing the tornado. Others see it as evidence that our decisions are predetermined, and we are just acting out what is already written for us. After all, we have no control over a butterfly flapping its wings, or which way the winds will carry the motion it causes. Determinism is the idea that every event has a cause, and that there is no such thing as free will. Let's explore arguments against determinism and how they can be applied to our society. One of the most popular arguments against determinism is the problem of human volition. If we are determined to do something, then it means we have no choice in what we do. However, this leads to an infinite regress because we need to ask what causes our volition, which would lead us back to the same problem if determinism were true. Another argument against determinism is that it does not take into account all the possibilities because it assumes that every event has a single cause and that there are only two possible outcomes, yes or no, black or white, etc. This means that for any given decision, there are always two possible outcomes, and one of them must be chosen by someone or something. If this were true, then there would be no such thing as a chance, and everything would be predetermined. So why should you even care about free will? The idea of free will is important and a topic of contention for many people. It's a fundamental human right that we should not take away from others. However, the question remains, do humans really have free will? One of the most popular arguments for free will is that if we didn't have it, then we would not be responsible for our actions. For example, if a person commits a crime and they are found guilty, then this would mean that they were not in control of their actions when they committed the crime, and so they should not be punished. Many devout theologians believe that this would steer the world into chaos. They believe that there is no possibility of morals without being taught through religion. I believe that better morals are developed without religion. When I see someone begging for money on the street corner, I could care less what deity they worship. I personally do not believe in free will. Therefore, I know that with a different path outlined for me, I could be right there next to that person on the street. In conclusion, the real question about free will is to be fatalist or not. If we cannot change our future, what is the point in living? I would say that the point is to live with purpose and make the most of it. We can't change the future, but we can choose how to feel about it. Feel well and be well, everyone. Thank you for watching, and if I earned it, please consider subscribing to this channel.